The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon to the beautiful city of Chicago. Welcome to another Ask the Experts, where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We are so glad you joined us today. We've got an action-packed show today. For the next 50 minutes, we're going to take a subject that might be negative, but we're going to turn it into a positive today. So you know that next month, we know you see us promoting on Facebook because we get your letters, but starting next month, we are going to be putting many of our shows on TikTok. Now, it'll just be my luck that the government comes in and changes the rules, but we know that TikTok's got a huge audience, and it's really going to give us a lot of exposure. So that starts next month. And if you miss a show, you can always go to iHeart under Ask the Experts, or you can go to YouTube. Like I said, you know, for the next 50 minutes, we have got an incredible show. We're going to take a subject like bankruptcy, like tax relief. And though it's a negative, we have somebody who's going to make it a positive. Let me welcome you to attorney Kevin Benjamin. Good afternoon, Kevin.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, we love having you on. You're so knowledgeable, and people can really learn a lot from your show. Since we have all these new listeners, you've got to tell us about yourself and your law firm.
Okay. Well, I'm Kevin Benjamin, and the firm is Benjamin Legal Services, and we're based in Chicago. I'm licensed in different states and federal jurisdictions. We concentrate mostly on bankruptcy, foreclosure issues, loan workout and restructurings, IRS tax resolution, state resolution. Now, with bankruptcy, that's kind of a general term. So there's different types of bankruptcy. There's Chapter 7, there's Chapter 13, Chapter 11, there's individuals, there's joint, there's Chapter 12, 9, 15 even. So there's all different kinds of cases. Most people don't know that. There's a use for it, depending on what your situation is, whether you're liquidating, which doesn't mean you're losing anything because there's exemptions, or whether you're restructuring and what kind of debt do you have, priority, security, all those kind of questions we're going to get into in a minute. But basically, I've been doing this, for about 35 years, helping people and companies too, businesses, but a lot of people individually get out of debt or restructure their debt, and resolve tax issues and save homes from foreclosure, stop foreclosure, stuff like that.
Kevin, I have listened. You've been doing this a lot longer than I have, but I have never seen so many businesses close up. I've never seen so many people really sad that it's getting harder and harder to live. And I don't know what that has done to your business, but bankruptcy is a way to get out of this, isn't it?
Absolutely. Times have been tough, especially since the pandemic. But, over the decades I've been doing this, and good times, bad times, people have, stress because it's you could be making money, but spending money too. So even in good times, people have too high payments, credit is good. Then bad times come, maybe their interest rates come up, maybe they're adjustable, balloon payments, all kinds of things, cash flow issues, especially if you work for yourself, where your income fluctuates. So, and then of course, bad times, things happen. So there's always been people needing help, debt relief or restructuring of debt. And that's really what it's for. I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, corporations file bankruptcy, but they're not out of business. They're restructuring debt, just lowering payments. So a person could do the same thing, or it's called a fresh start. It's just straight bankruptcy, Chapter 7, just get out of debt. You can do it once every 8 years. You got to qualify for it. There's an income test called a means test. And if you're over the income, there's deductions and ways to get under it, and credits, all that kind of stuff. That's why you have a lawyer. There's a liquidation analysis. There's all kinds of ways to figure out what you're doing. Plus, you got to talk to a professional because you don't know what kind of debts you have. Secured, unsecured,
Right.
Priority debts, which some debts aren't dischargeable anyway. So, you got to make sure you're filing the right kind of chapter, getting the relief. And what most people don't know is oftentimes you can kind of do a combination. It'll be a Chapter 13, but like you pay some bills in full and some bills less than 100%. And there's reasons for that too, which I could tell you about or ask you if people want to know. But there's ways to customize your situation, so to speak.
Kevin, I haven't told you this yet, but so we start promoting this show on Monday, usually about 4 to 5 days before your show. And this blew my mind. I got 3 phone calls. People who knew you were coming on. We gave all 3 of them your phone number. But the 3 calls I got, people are very embarrassed about bankruptcy and foreclosure. And I tried to tell them, I mean, even Trump filed for bankruptcy. It's nothing to hang your head about. And it seems like they're so embarrassed to talk about it. This is what you do for a living. And there's no reason people should be worried or embarrassed about having to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, the bankruptcy laws in the United States are there for a reason. It's to promote, maybe taking chances. I mean, our country was built on small businesses and innovation. And if there was debtor prisons, nobody would take out a loan and take a chance to try to do something. So by the same token,
Right.
you can't do it every year and just take out loans and stuff. But start a business, take out loans if you have to. It doesn't work out, why should you be screwed for the rest of your life? So it actually benefits the country. The Donald Trump thing is kind of a little misnomer, because when someone says filing bankruptcy, people think bankruptcy, Chapter 7, getting out of debt, wiped out, or in the movies or in the street penalty. That's not the case. Like Donald Trump's companies filed Chapter 11 restructurings. And there's 11 restructurings, there's 11 liquidations, there's all kinds of different things. But corporations file for different reasons. Lower debt payments, restructure contracts. I'm doing a couple of Chapter 11s right now myself, stuff like that. So that's different than a personal bankruptcy where I'm just going out of debt. Right now, Donald Trump, I mean, on the news, with the 400, 500 million fine, whatever we're supposed to pay for bond, you would think, hey, why doesn't he file bankruptcy? Well, you don't want to file Chapter 7, whether you don't have it or not. Then you're under the guidance of the jurisdiction of the bankruptcy court, where people could, you got to disclose all your assets and liabilities, sign things under penalty of perjury, and there's a lot of investigation. He doesn't want to do it. So I would sue. So it's not quite so easy. I mean, it's surprising. I mean, a couple of days ago, I just read about some new fraud cases in Chicago. Somebody's they just do it themselves. He's filed a form, right? And just hey, you just say you make a certain amount of money. give the trustee false tax returns. Here's a tax return that says I make $40,000, even though the one you filed with the IRS was $200,000. I mean, this is not grade school. People are stupid. You know what I'm saying? They're easy to check these things out. Or, I only have one bank account, but how about the ones you have in a business name that you have? I mean, it's like, you don't think anyone's going to know about that? It's unbelievable how dumb people are. And that's how they get in trouble. So in that case, you're better off just letting people sue you, instead of going into bankruptcy, because now you're going to have, like in this one case, it's a referral, it's an indictment to the U.S. District Court. Yeah, it's not only getting out of debt, it's probably going to go to jail. I'm saying because bankruptcy fraud. Not everyone does it. I'm just saying people think you just fill out a form and, it's not quite so simple like that. So there's a lot of people in trouble, companies, personal people. Usually you keep your house, you keep your car. It's federal law, but state exemptions. So like Illinois is not so terrific for exemptions. But I'll give you an example. Like someone called a couple hours ago, just moved to Chicago from Los Angeles, got some issues. Other lawyers are telling them, well, you can't do this or that, but we're different because we're not a call center. He calls, he's talking to the head guy, he's talking to me. I don't give him just 5 minutes. It takes 20 or 30, whatever he needs. Let's get the facts out because I could solve problems. So the good news is, he's like, he did some research too. He's like, man, Illinois exemptions aren't so good. I like to use California. I said, well, here's the good news. Venue-wise, you qualify for Illinois. I'm going to file the case here. Exemption-wise, you have to use LA because it's a 2-year look back. And moved in September, which it's actually better for him. And he didn't know California has 2 sets of state exemptions, but it's like my job to figure that out for him. So we'll get him out of debt. He has a couple assets that we'll be able to exempt, or a couple other issues that I know how to handle. And we'll walk him through it where other people are telling me how to restructure or you can't do it. It's not the case. Talk to me. I mean, you could come in person. If you want to see me, you could do a Zoom, do it by phone. You can call. Now, if someone calls, doesn't mean I'm available that minute to talk. Like this gentleman had called. I called him back within an hour. But otherwise, I have a Calendly link. I mean, there's ways to schedule with me too. And, so it's not hard to get on my schedule. But, if you need a lot of questions, you want to reserve my time so I could focus on what your situation is and give you answers and solutions. My job is to give you what are your option or options, pros and cons of each, cost, what's the effect, help you make an informed decision on what to do, whether it's different kinds of bankruptcy or bankruptcy planning or non-bankruptcy alternatives. I mean, sometimes people call and it's like, okay, bankruptcy could be a backup. We could try something else. But obviously with bankruptcy, I have a lot more tools because I have the power. The federal court, bankruptcy court, gives certain powers to the debtor as well and certain protections. Right. So again, this morning someone called. There's an issue. They're getting screwed. Could be a foreclosure. And when I was talking to the person, I'm like, well, I could stop that in chapter 13 or 11. She may have a cause of action against this person, adversary proceedings. They can't put a lien on the property. She's going to get refinanced. I get a court order for the lender. Everyone's happy, and then she may actually make money on this thing when we go after somebody. So, but she didn't know that until I talked to her. And that may not even be her best option because she may be able to do something without filing bank. But that's why she's calling me, and we're giving a free consultation, and if they need help, we proceed.
Well, we have a caller. Their name is Kevin also, but they're from Fort Wayne, Indiana, listening to the show. Okay. Yes, I am enjoying listening to Kevin. Does Indiana have the same laws that Illinois does?
Well, it's like I said, it's federal law by state exemptions. I just filed a case 14 days ago. I'll tell you why I know that in a minute. In Northern District of Indiana, Crown Point. Okay. So I know because after you file the case, you got to finish the filing within 14 days, which was today. And my client from Indiana was in my office today. And that's one reason I was talking to Steve. I was a little swamped this morning. So that was a foreclosure issue, emergency filing. people told him he couldn't do it. I'm not state licensed in Indiana, but I'm federal licensed in Indiana. So I have the ability to do it. I've done it before. I haven't done it for a while in Indiana, but the guy needed help. So we stopped the foreclosure. And then, the next 14 days, we get documents, and there's different local rules in Indiana, different procedures for me to follow, even, I'm saying. And different exemptions. But otherwise, yeah, it's federal law. And Indiana has some better exemptions. I was just noticing this. I was just doing the exemptions yesterday and filed them today. And they're better than Illinois. Not surprising that they're better than Illinois, but they are. So the answer is yes. Is it the same? It's state exemption still, so it's the same as anybody else, but you have better exemptions than some other states. There are some states that do federal exemptions. That's very rare. People do federal exemptions, but it's still federal law, and it works the same way. Just little local procedures, a little difference, and the exemptions are different.
Since Fort Wayne is listening on the radio, let's give out the phone number. It's 312-853-3100. That's 312-853-3100. You can also email Kevin at attorneys, that's plural, at benjaminlaw.com. You were just saying
website,
there's a lot.
Also, benjaminlaw.com website too. There's a form.
Why don't you give your website also?
benjaminlaw.com. You can look at the website about all kinds of things that we do, and then there's a contact me. You can fill out a slip, basically, will contact you. But it also has all our contact information, phone numbers.
Kevin, can you go into a little bit more detail? There's a lot of different areas of bankruptcy, 11, 7, 13. Can you explain each one to the listeners?
Okay. I'll start out with first what most people don't do. As a matter of fact, when you call an attorney regarding bankruptcy under the federal law, all attorneys are supposed to advise you, or any debt relief agency, as they call us, which is a separate story in that, supposed to tell you about all kinds of cases right away. And that was a good change, actually, because like before 2005, a lot of people would try to steer you into what they did. They only did Chapter 7s. So everything, they're not helping the client out, they're helping themselves out, right? So, and then then everyone's got to file disclosures now. Like even attorney, we filed disclosures that we've told to the court that we've advised people of obligations. So anyway, my main speech is Chapter 9 is for governments. No one really cares, right? Chapter 12 is for farmers. I don't have a lot of farmers. Chapter like 15 is like international cross borders, right? There's Chapter 11, which is usually a corporate restructuring, but an individual can do a Chapter 11, and sometimes they have to. That's more of a complicated person, but normally it's a corporation, okay? And then Chapter 11, there's restructuring, to restructure or liquidation, right? So then there's generally what a person does is a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is what most people consider bankruptcy. It's getting out of debt, and I'm going to tell you about some exceptions in a second. Chapter 13 is similar to Chapter 11, but it's a personal restructuring of debt. Think of it as a court-ordered bill consolidation, and it's more affordable, more streamlined, simpler for an individual. However, you're also limited to paying back within 60 months max. Okay, where in 11, you get more sometimes, but it's a simpler case, a personal consolidation of debt, personal bill consolidation, and sometimes how I refer to it. And it's oftentimes used to stop foreclosure, car repossessions, or maybe you don't qualify for Chapter 7 otherwise, or certain debts aren't dischargeable in Chapter 7, but they are in Chapter 13. It's called a super discharge. So there's a way, the attorney will tell you about that stuff. But Chapter 7 is your straight bankruptcy, but not all debts are discharged. So for example, debts incurred by fraud, child support, alimony, sometimes taxes, other things. I'm saying there's a whole list. That's by statute, right? So then you have categories of debt. You have secured debt, and you have unsecured debt. Unsecured debt is divided into categories: priority unsecured debt or non-priority unsecured debt. So let's discuss it. So Schedule D is secured debt. So secured debt, you got a mortgage, you got a car loan. That's mostly the usual security. On a secured debt, you have the option of keeping it and paying for it, or giving it back and owing nothing. So there's ways, if you want to keep it, you could sometimes reaffirm if it's a car. Sometimes the lenders try to get you to reaffirm on a mortgage. You don't have to. I won't let you. There's no requirement for that. Other ways to handle that. But let's say a car, you could reaffirm or not, or you could redeem the property. There's companies that'll give you a loan, just pay off the value of the car and redeem. Then you have secured debt that's bifurcated. So let's say you have a car, you owe $20,000, it's worth $5,000. You're underwater at $15,000. It's secured for $5,000. It's unsecured for $15,000. Now, what can you do about it? Well, if the car is, for example, bought more than 910 days ago, you could restructure that car loan, cram it down to the value, and basically make the other part unsecured. And if you're paying less than 100%, you really got a car, and you got your car note from $800 down to $200, or sometimes lower. Just some examples. So also, if it's for business, there's exceptions to that. But if you bought the car last month and it's for personal use, you can't just buy the car and then file Chapter 13 and say, hey, I want to restructure my debt. But even if it's 910 days or less, you could work on the interest rate and payments. There's a lot you could do. House, very similar, or investment property or second properties. Can you cram down a house? There's real estate could be restructured in Chapter 13 or 11, investment properties, vacation homes, stuff like that, to the value of the property, where the other part becomes unsecured. For your house, there's this called the anti-modification provision, which they try to stop that. But there's also exceptions to the anti-modification provision. So the personal residence is not always eligible for that. But talk to a lawyer, because that'll take up more than the whole time here to talk about that. But it's possible to look at that. But even if you're not cramming it down, you could restructure like the arrearage on a foreclosure. And someone was, the one in Indiana was behind $60,000. A lot of money. Over 5 years, a lot of money. It's a lot more money over 1 month. You know what I'm saying? So like in foreclosure in Illinois, if you don't redeem it, which is paying all the money you're behind, they take you in state court and they foreclose. The banks don't tell you could pay it over 60 months, but you got to get a court order. So, I had someone just the other day, it's $13,000. You don't have it, but over 60 months at no interest. and they thought it was due to the insurance. Yeah. The client's like, okay, just do it. I'm gonna borrow. I'm gonna get a. I can say, what are you refinancing? First of all, you're taking the arrearage, and it's 0%, and it's right there. You don't need a loan. I'm using that bank's money and paying them 0%. So you don't need to get a loan. You have the loan. I push the button. You have the loan. Now your current mortgage, your current monthly payment, principal, interest, tax, and insurance, that you will then start making. So the bank gets their mortgage payment, right? But the arrearage, you're behind 13, 15, 26. That's interest-free over 60 months. You don't need to get a loan for that. I'm making the bank give you a loan at no interest for that. And it's approved because I said so. You know what I'm saying? I filled the form, push the button, and then it's done.
Bert in DuPage.
Yeah,
DuPage. He wants to know, if you file bankruptcy, can you still get credit cards?
Well, yes. Now, here's the thing. Like, people think like someone asked me the other day, typical question. Like, well, if I file, then when can I start getting when can I get a house? When can I do that? How long can I wait? There's no law that says you're banned from stuff for 10 years. That's all crap. Okay. Whether or not it's on your credit report or not is a different story. And how far behind it had you put it behind you and start reestablishing your credit. But oftentimes you file bankruptcy, your credit score goes up oftentimes. And because you can't file again for 8 years, you're probably getting credit card offers in the mail or other offers. There's also secure credit cards. So the answer is absolutely. And there's no law that you can't. And many banks market to you because they want, hey, you can't, do it for 8 years. Same as a car loan, as a matter of fact. People say, you get a car loan all day. Not every lender, but many of them will, because you can't file again for 8 years. The car loan is probably going 5 or 6, right? You have no other debt anymore. So you can pay me, and you want to pay the lender because you want to keep your car. And then the car helps you reestablish credit. And they charge you a little higher rate. But then again, if you didn't file bankruptcy, they're charging a higher rate because part of your credit score is your debt-to-income ratio and you're in debt. But you're a better risk if you file bankruptcy because it's behind you, and now you're debt-free, whether you're still being sued and I have all this money, and then maybe you're going to get a car loan and be forced into bankruptcy, and the car, you bought a new car and it gets devalued, and you're surrendering it instead of reaffirming it. And then they lose money. So creditors don't care if you file, they don't want to file on them, but even if you file on them, right. But even if it's on them, it's okay. Here, you may get a letter in the mail, pre-approved or all that kind of stuff, because they want to get you back. Okay, it's just business to them. I'm surprised some clients they're gonna get mad. Who's they? The credit card company? Who's they? It's just business. They don't know who you are. So you're entitled to do things or you're not. So you're entitled to get a fresh start if you qualify, and that's how it is. And they're unsecured creditor. Now, if you charge up the credit card before you file, buying luxury items, and then they could either contest your case or contest that part of the debt for the 90 days. Or sometimes you bought stuff, maybe you bought like your furniture outright from there or last month. Your credit card may say they have a security interest, so maybe for that part of the debt it's secured, but you're keeping your furniture anyway. So it's not a problem to file. And by the way, the person for the page who asked that question, that could be like, oh, by the way, can I do it? That's fine, but it should not be well, I'm not going to file bankruptcy because I want to have a credit card. Are you kidding me? How much do you owe? $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, and you're going to keep paying that in interest because you want to have a credit card that's tapped out? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So, the example today that my person came in from the other state, paid $175 from $175 down to $65,000 on his credit. It's $110,000. He should have filed 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? But he was robbing Peter to pay Paul, borrowing money because he thought he had to pay the credit card. And what a waste of money. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Kevin, if you own a business, and you're going to go bankrupt, and it's both the business and yourself, do you file two different? Do you file 11 and 13?
Well, it depends what you're doing. So, you mean like you're self-employed? So sometimes people are small businesses. Okay, they're self-employed, so they have the business debt, right? But because they're a small company, maybe they guarantee the debt, or they got a business credit card, but it's a personal liability on them. So now, if the company is going out of business and there's no assets and there's no funny business with the company, like you were pocketing stuff like that, you don't need to file on the company. You just file yourself because the company's gone, right? The company could be liquidated. I had a friend of mine just ask about this. So he had a LLC, and this company's coming after him for $38,000. But I looked at it, and it's just liability on the LLC, not my friend, right? I said, from what I was seeing, unless there's a personal guarantee that no one showed me, right? Because, and of course, the company's like, well, if you file a chapter, give us the filing. I'm like, we're not filing anything, right? The LLC's out of business. There was never actually, in this case, any assets in the business or income or stuff like that. So there's no preferential transfer or clawback issues. See, if you file a corporate Chapter 7, you're under the control of the trustee, right? So to unwind a corporation, you could dissolve a corporation through the state process, Or sometimes people they just file Chapter 7 and unwind it that way. You can, but you got to be careful. Because if you were liquidating assets or you were paying yourself a lot of money and maybe more than you should, and are commingling things, the 7 trustee will come after you for a clawback for that money, or the creditor could do it, or they could, depose you and find that you were, committing fraud. You gotta be careful. So I've done corporate 7s, but if it's any kind of complication, I say don't do it. So you don't have to. Now, let's say you're in business, right? So now you're filing a corporation can't file 13 because it's not a person. So they file Chapter 11. So if they're paying it back and you're just a guarantor, I'm saying on there, most likely it could be okay. Now, in a Chapter 13, if let's say you file for yourself, but your mother or girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, a friend guaranteed the debt, right? Well, there's a co-debtor stay. So we filed a case, it's an automatic stay. They can't garnish you, sue you, harass you, proceed, lawsuit, stop, all things, a stay, right? And even though the guarantor is not filing, there's a third party co-debtor stay, so they can't go after the co-debtor either. So this is hit now, but Chapter 11 is a little different. So like, for example, I have a Chapter 11 case going right now, and there's some lawsuits going on, and it's a corporate Chapter 11. So I spoke to an attorney yesterday who's representing some of these entities defending in this lawsuit. And he's asking about the stay. And I told him the truth. The company that I represent, they can't proceed on. They're supposed to have debts today, right? Depositions. The other company, they're also serving an individual who's the owner of the company and another entity. So I said, technically, there's no co-debtor stay on a Chapter 11. There is some exceptions, though, but I was telling this person, I said, in this case, what are they going to depose? Because if they're going to ask the individual questions about collecting from the company, they can't do that. So it gets intertwined. You know what I'm saying? But I've had other 11s where my clients are the defendant and this other companies are defendants who are just separate and apart, just different people. Then it's not a problem. They can't go after my guy, and they just go after the rest of the defendants. But like I told this guy yesterday, I don't think the plaintiff would want to even waste their time and money on the debt at this point, because you got to get a court reporter. It could be all day debt. You know what I'm saying? It's expensive. You're preparing, and if they can't ask a lot of questions, so they may want to postpone it. But that's his call. You know what I'm saying? So I was just telling him how it was. Also, I mentioned to him that oftentimes the other person doesn't know that there's no stay.
Kevin, I want to talk about also, but
What?
Looks like I lost Kevin. Are you still there, Kevin? Oh, good. Okay. We lost my picture. Give us, first of all, let's give everybody your phone number and your website again.
312-853-3100. 312-853-3100. BenjaminLaw.com is the website. Attorneys, plural, BenjaminLaw.com if you want to email us. But you can scroll to the webpage, all the contact information is there at BenjaminLaw.com, phone number. You could even submit a form to have us contact you, whatever you want to do. So it's very easy to get a hold of us and schedule appointments and block out time for you. And you can do it in person, in Zoom, on the phone, whatever you want to do. It's modern technology. And our files are online. Our CRM is online. So whether you come in person or not, you have access to us. Our questionnaires are in the cloud online. So, it's really easy to get information and documents. Most people don't want to come in. You don't have to. I had a couple of new clients today, or possible new clients. I just give them access to the CRM. They're uploading documents, figuring out a questionnaire, setting up a follow-up call. I'll have the information. Easy peasy. You know what I'm saying? Some people want to see me.
Might want to zoom in.
What?
Or the caller from Fort Wayne might want to zoom in rather than travel.
Yeah, it's easy. So Easy.
Yeah. So, Kevin, all I keep hearing about is 85,000 new IRS agents. And in the beginning, it was they're only going to go after people who make $400,000 or more. That's not true, is it?
No, but what they consider big income could be 100,000 or more. You know what I'm saying? So, but now the government got billions of dollars to expand and update the IRS. Including in that bill was 85,000 agents. They haven't actually hired all 85,000 yet, but they have hired. So, and it's good and it's bad because if anyone's tried to deal with the IRS, they don't answer the phone, and you can get hold for hours. You know what I'm saying, and that includes even being an attorney. So it's like depending if it's an ACI, I mean, what division you're in, if you have a direct revenue officer or agent involved. But so it's really a hassle. So more agents are getting a little better response time. On the other hand, a lot of the new hires, most of the new hires, they're new. They don't know anything. So you're on the phone and you're talking about, okay, great, got someone, thank God. You're talking about this and that, and make sure they're in the right department and they're qualified to discuss this case. And the next thing you know, you talk about 20 minutes, and like, oh, I'm sorry. This case is over $50,000. I'm personally only going to talk about less than. Well, how come you didn't tell me that 2 minutes ago?
Yeah.
So then you passed around a lot, and then sometimes if you're on hold, the biggest frustrating part is if you're on hold an hour or two, then they just hang up on you, and they say it's a courtesy disconnect, which is so insulting. Oh, you do me a favor by making me wait 2 hours and hang up on me. So
right.
sometimes though they have the automated thing where it's like, hey, punch in your number, we'll call you back, and they give you an estimate. So sometimes that works because okay, I just track what area code the call's coming from. I'm saying, and I found that their estimated time of a callback is pretty accurate. I'm saying, so you just got to watch your phone and make sure your volume's on and not doing something else, because when they call, you want to take that call. Well, I mean, I do, because I'm from my clients.
How do you get through to them? Most of the people who call me and said, I can never get a hold of the IRS.
All right, so you could call maybe sometimes early in the morning or sometimes late at night works. You could do the automatic callback where they call on you back and just make sure you take the phone call. A lot of lawyers, there's a company called NQ. They actually pay a company to sit on hold for you, and wait time. And the IRS at one time banned that, but it's kind of back now. So it's kind of ridiculous because it's like, hire people, answer their freaking phones, or do something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people are trying to resolve debt. When someone hires me to resolve your tax debt, right? You want to resolve the tax debt. You don't want to go away and stall. I want my offer and compromise submitted or analyzed. I want the installment agreement approved and to start paying. Once we agree to terms, of course. And you want everyone off your back. You want the interest to stop, all those kind of things. So, and of course, like tax day was this Monday, the 15th. So I had some tax clients that was kind of waiting to say, okay, let's file your returns, because if you owe more money, first of all, once you have an installment agreement or offer account, you got to stay compliant with the IRS. So if I resolved something last month for somebody, then April 15, they didn't pay, that deal's kicked out. So I had another guy in Wisconsin call me up. He did his own offer and compromise. No, I'm sorry, his own installment agreement, because he didn't know what offer compromise was. And it was a bad deal, and he's like, can't really pay, can I redo it? So I talked to him last couple weeks ago. I'm like, well, are you going to owe money for 2023? He thinks another 15, 20,000, whatever it was, maybe 30. And I said, well, have you filed yet? No. So you're filing first of all, you're filing, you're going to have the money. He said no. So first of all, April 15th, come April 16th, you're no longer in compliance. That deal's over anyway. So I asked the guy, I said, who did the deal for you? So I did it myself. It's okay. So how'd you do it? So someone on the IRS site, and he said, I was going over his budget. I'm like, well, I don't know how of course you can't make this payment. Who said you could? So how'd you get that? He's like, well, I went on the IRS site and they gave me 3 options online, and that was the lowest one. I said, what about offer compromise? Well, they didn't mention that. No kidding. And they didn't mention with three where's that coming from? So the IRS, not your friend, they don't represent you. Okay, they want your money.
Right.
They think option one, option two, pay. They're not working things out. And this guy actually would qualify for an offer compromise. So it's like, people don't get it. It doesn't matter how much you owe. It's your ability to pay. Okay. The IRS will settle either offer and compromise or installment agreement on payments or partial pay installment agreements based upon your ability to pay. It is an exercise in cash flows. Okay. So especially your offer and compromise, which is a settlement, you want to be compliant. You want to add that new tax on there because what's the difference? You're settling for X, whether you owe Y. If 10 grand is the settlement amount and you owe 20, that's great. But now you owe another 30. Now it's 60, but instead of 30, but it's still 10 grand. You know what I'm saying? And now you resolve that extra year or two. It's your ability to pay. And people don't realize, how much, someone called me, $1 million, right? Like, how am I ever going to pay that? Well, you're not. And you're not going to go to jail. There is criminal IRS division for fraud. Okay. But someone just, they made a lot of money a couple of years ago, they paid, and then now they're out of business, whatever, and how am I ever going to pay this? Well, maybe you're not, okay? Offer and compromise, ability to pay. So the IRS is basically mandated to resolve the issues, not just take whatever you offer. I'm saying it's a formula. Forget about those national companies on TV. I sell over pennies on the dollar, they don't do crap. They're a call center. They're taking your money, promising the world, take whatever you get. You got to qualify for things, okay? And the penny on the dollar thing is just a matter of how much you owe. You never negotiate with the IRS saying, well, I'm going to give you 20 cents on the dollar, 22 cents. Here's my counter offer. No, it's money. Here's my ability to pay. Take your ability to pay divided by what you're, so if it's $10,000 and you owe 50, it's 20 cents on the dollar. If you owe 100, it's 10 cents on the dollar. You owe $1 million, it's a penny on the dollar. It's still 10 grand, right? If you owe $1 million, I just settled your debt for a penny on the dollar. I am so great. It's because it's 10 grand. If you owe 8,000, it's 100 cents on the dollar. I settled for the same 10 grand, but now I'm a bum because this guy got pennies on the dollar. It's just a gimmick on the thing. It's an exercise in cash flow.
Kevin, I wish you were.
Offers. You got to do it in writing. You got to submit documents. Mostly, there are streamlined cases where no documents, but otherwise, you got to do a asset evaluation, your assets, your liabilities, your cash flow, liquidation analysis to determine the ability to pay. So in the short speak, it's your ability to pay. The reason you hire someone is to determine what your ability to pay is. And there are exceptions, and the IRS thing is this, and we may think is this. There's ways to negotiate the expense and the income, and this counts, that doesn't count, and they could appeal it, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
Kevin, once they hire you, they don't have to talk to the IRS anymore.
Well, the first thing you do is hire us. And the first thing we do is get the power of attorney in there and protect you and get them off your back, let them know that they're being represented. And the IRS likes that, but they prefer to have someone else that they're doing to try to work things out. They know what documents we are and that kind of stuff. So, and then of course we want to try to make sure they're not going to lien you or levy you, or if you're about to, we can get maybe a levy hold, give us, maybe ask for 30 days, whatever, because I got to get some documents. We just hired IRS, and they'll oftentimes do, okay? If you have been levied or liened, there's ways to resolve that too, but it's easier to resolve it before they do it. If you've gotten liened and have assets taken from you, okay, which is not good, there is a procedure. That's not even a lien. That's just actually a levy, right? So there is a way to get it back, depending, but that's also a lot more work too, and you don't want to wait till the last minute. The bottom line is the IRS is scary. You're talking in public, death, taxes, IRS. Yeah. You want to talk to the IRS. People don't open the mail. I'm used to that. I have people foreclosure, bankruptcy clients, collectors. People are like, I didn't even want to open the mail. So same with the tax, the IRS. They don't, so I get it. You know what I'm saying? So give it to me, I'll open it, right? So, but they don't know it can be resolved. They just don't know. And some people take me up on that. I mean, they'll come to the office and like, God, I thought maybe a couple letters you didn't open, not 2 years worth.
That envelope from the IRS does not disappear, does it? When you put it in that drawer.
They're not going away, okay? And they're a
Yeah.
powerful agency, and then they have all the tools. It's like why does the federal government have a successful prosecution rate on people, right? Well, first of all, they can pick their cases, but second of all, they have all the tools in the world, right? And if they need a new tool, Congress passes a law, you can now seize this, you can do this. So they're going to get you. You know what I'm saying? IRS is the same thing. They got tools, right? They got the government. It's the government, right? They want their money. So they're going to exempt themselves from this. They're going to garnish, seize, levy, whatever collection tools are. Now, by the way, if you got levied or liened or stuff like that, if it's a hardship, they have to release it. They will release it. It shows a hardship. You can't, affects your family. So there's ways to resolve it. It's not always a phone call. You just got to show them, okay? But they're not supposed to take that you can't eat, because they're just taking everything. They can't do that. Okay? But you got to show them, and people don't even know that. I mean, the government will back off if we could show them it's a hardship that collecting in this manner will make us, with my kids, and we have a hardship on our standard of living, reasonable standard of living is in jeopardy. So there's all kinds. And by the way, taxes sometimes can be resolved in bankruptcy. Sometimes they're discharged in bankruptcy. People don't know that, right? Or partially discharged, or it can be paid back. Depending on the amount of money, it's paid back in restructuring of debt as well. So oftentimes it's a lot easier than you think. When the person was asking about bankruptcy before, some debts aren't discharged. We mentioned taxes, but oftentimes they are discharged. And it depends. Now, before you file, you come to an experienced attorney. We will, if that's the reason you're filing. Sometimes people will have, like, someone's losing a house, I got to file. I'm saying that's a 13. But once you file a case, 7, 13, whatever, there are tolling events. So every tax year has what they call a CSED, collection statute expiration date. Okay, so people say, okay, I owe $14,000. Okay, that's what you owe, but is it 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? So if it's multiple years, I got to break it down to how much for this year, how much for that year, what's the CSED on that, and then what's the possibility of a bankruptcy discharge, not just on the number, but on each tax year, because maybe this year or that year's tax could be discharged, this year it can't. I had a case I was analyzing just a couple of weeks ago, and I told my client I can get rid of, I think it was like almost $300,000 or $400,000 of like $870 though. They have a lot of money, right? If they qualify for bankruptcy, they're going to do it. And this is like a couple of weeks ago. And I said, if you wait another week till April 16th, I could discharge another $90,000 because I did the analysis. So we did the analysis. What's the expiration date? What's the BK? What are your options? Okay. And then it's like people may say, well, I could discharge this, but I could discharge another 90 in a week and then another 140 in 5 months. Maybe I'll wait 5 months. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Okay. Or sometimes maybe you can't wait. Someone's garnishing whatever. So at least you know what's going on. But there's tolling events. So if you file a case, let's say it's only minor tax, but you had to foreclose, whatever, you were in Chapter 13 for 5 years.
1 minute.
And so that collection statute expiration date would have been tolled for that time period plus another time period when they add some days to it. So it's not always a hard, fast rule. That's why you got to have a professional tax person or BK lawyer, but I'm both, analyze the expiration dates, tolling periods, possible discharge of bankruptcy, but also if I'm settling the tax debt or installment agreement, I also need to know that because I could use that in my negotiation with the IRS as well.
Kevin, it's always a pleasure talking to you. You are just a world of knowledge. Let's give your phone number and website again.
Okay, Kevin Benjamin Legal Services, 853-3100. That's 312-853-3100. BenjaminLaw.com. Check out our webpage. All the contact information is there. I look forward to helping you. Bankruptcy, tax resolution, foreclosure, whatever you need. Okay? Thank you.
Kevin will be with us again next month with more Ask the Experts. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
That's Kevin Benjamin. Wow, he knows. He is probably one of the finest bankruptcy as well as tax relief attorneys. That's it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.